Hey guys, this is KillsAids, and I am reviewing a session that I played today in my 2NL challenge. So basically, I'm doing a challenge to build a bankroll starting from $30 up to however long I can go, and usually I'm playing this challenge at the 6 max rush tables. But today I decided to play at the non-rush tables just so that I can review a session and have just a few hands on my opponents. So without further ado, I'm just gonna jump into the stats here. So I played 738 hands today, and I won, less than half a buy-in. My BB per 100 is obviously fine, although I would hope that I would, go shooting up from here. And I have decided to play a little bit tighter than I was playing before. For you guys who followed me since the start, in my previous session you saw that I was playing over 20% VPIP, something like 26 or 24, and my PFR was a little bit higher. So today I was playing slightly tighter, and my 3-bet was closer to 4 rather than what I had previously, which was 8. I went to showdown 24%, and I lost quite a bunch when I went to showdown. So it kind of tells me that maybe I ran it a little bit bad. Maybe I got cooler. Maybe, I don't know, maybe I made some bad call downs or some bad bluffs in some spots. So that being said, we jump into the aggression, which was really, really high at 6. This is only 740 hands approximately, so the aggression factor is not going to be too important, I don't think, as are, most of these stats. I do not think many of them will converge, apart from maybe the VPIP and PFR, over this small sample size. But, that being said, my aggression was really high. So when I combine that with the $1 at showdown, it basically tells me that I did not make, questionable calls. So I need to see if I was making questionable bluffs maybe and getting called, or maybe making like bluffs that are sometimes good at higher stakes would probably be bad at extremely micro stakes, and vice versa, because your opponents are not going to be thinking, and they will be playing their hands pretty much face up, or at least more face up than at higher limits, where they are thinking about your range at least. The aggression percentage is 42%, which is fine. So now let's go into the biggest hands that I won or lost, which I've actually put here on the top. So I'm gonna take just a few hands, and I will replay these. Alright, so I paused the video just for a second in order to remove the known hole cards. So, first hand, and I'm actually gonna minimize this just for so you guys don't see the result before we go through the hand. So, Ace King suited. I actually during this session I was experimenting with the sizing, and I went from 3x to pot, which is 3.5x, to 4x pre-flop, and I think that I have decided that the bigger the bets, the better it's going to be, because I will be betting pretty much for value pre-flop. I decided to play slightly tighter range than I was before. So when I play tighter range and people are going to call me like crazy, I'd rather just make a lot of value from that and try and get as much money in as I can to be able to set up the stacks or set up as much money as possible post flop. So that being said, I raised to 3.5x. This guy folds. The 12-10 calls. Also, during my play I did not have this HUD, this specific HUD. I only had VPIP, PFR, and 3-bet. So here I have a lot of stats, but I don't have too many hands on these guys. Although I do have more hands here than I do on my opponents in rush. So so the flop comes ace 9 8, and despite the fact that this guy is going to be 12-10, I do think that he will be calling me down with a lot of stuff, and I do think that my image is going to allow me, because I was kind of the reason, not the reason, during the session I was raising big in size, so it kind of, some opponents are going to adjust to that by thinking I'm overly aggressive. So when I do flop top pair, top kicker, basically here I think I have pretty much the nuts. So this guy checks, I bet really big, as you guys can see. I get called, and this guy folds. This guy is 12-10, as I said. Actually, the 10 is the open, the raise unopened. You know, when he's the first guy to open. So I want to see how often he flats. So he calls the open on the cutoff. He called just once out of 6 times, which I actually suspect to be this hand. And this was about it, actually. So this guy can have, you know, pocket pairs, big aces, maybe suited connectors. I don't think he has suited connectors, to be honest. I don't think his range contains any suited connectors. I think he has maybe, you know, decent pairs that he decided he does not want to 3-bet. Something like pocket jacks, pocket queens, pocket tens, pocket nines, small pocket pairs maybe, and maybe ace king, ace queen. Although I do think that he would 3-bet ace king. I'm not really sure. But anyway, I decided to barrel again. And one other thing that I notice is these kind of frags, as opposed to the 40, 0, and total passive players, they tend to not slow play anything. So basically, if he had something like pocket nines, pocket eights, I would expect him to always raise me on the flop, or at least like raise me on the turn. So when I do bet on the turn and he calls, I do think that I'm going to be good most of the times. And the river is just a total blank. And you know, since I do think that I'm going to be good most of the times, I decided to just barrel again on the river. And surely enough, he called and he had ace queen. So that's the first hand. And you know, even if I'm playing against a nit like that, I can't really put him on solely, you know, pocket nines, pocket eights that he's calling down with. In a lot of cases, he's also going to have like pocket queens, pocket jacks, and he is going to call like a couple streets and then fold. And it's fine. Like, I don't mind him folding because I'm not going to show him what I have, and you know, I get to take down the pot without them knowing. And the more I keep barreling, the more he's going to start. The more he's going to start leveling himself into calling, especially if he hasn't seen me show down too many cards on the river. Anyways, next hand. There's a total loose player who limps onto the gun, and a seemingly reg who is 22-18, but it's only 50 hand. But he's not really like limping, he's not overcalling, etc, etc. So even over 50 hands, 22-18 seems like someone who is not totally clueless, I guess. So he decided to isolate this guy, and I decided to call because I'm pretty sure that he's gonna call behind again. And he actually did not. So the flop comes 10-7-5 with 2 hearts. I check, raise, really big, and he jams, and we get it in. And it was actually cooler. The reason I check raise really big is because I can have so much here, and the board is extremely draw heavy, etc. You know, there's not really too much explanation to do here. Also, because I decided to just, you know, make my bet sizing really big at these stakes. So yeah, even on the button, I'm raising, you know, pot pretty much. And I get called, and I have top 2. He donks, I raised, but actually not too big. I raised decently. I think this is slightly less than pot size. He calls. Then he donks again, really small. And again, I bet pretty much pot size. He raises, I jam. And he had king 6. So not much to go into. I think this hand pretty much played itself from my perspective. Yeah, so I have 6-7 suited on the button. I raise, I get 3-bet out of position. From a guy who seems to be 3-betting a lot now. It's only 17 hands, so it doesn't say anything. And he actually just 3-bet once. So this is the only hand that he 3-bet. And he seems to be kind of tight. So again, I don't want to read too much into the numbers because it's only 17 hands. It's not worth, spending time reading into these numbers. But anyway, he got cold called by an 85-12 player in the big blind. So I'm not going to fold. And the flop comes, it gives me a flush draw. And he checks. This 85-12 guy decides to bet. It's only like an extremely small bet size. And usually what I see from these guys is they usually donk fold a lot. So I decided to just raise. And he actually did not donk fold, so he just called. On the turn he decided to check. I checked behind. On the river he checked, and I thought that the king would be a really good card to bluff on the river because any kind of any kind of hand that donk calls on the flop, which has some kind of draw or like overcards or something like that, now has pretty much nothing on the river. So I decided to actually just bluff really small, and he actually called, and he had a 4. So I don't really hate my play here, to be honest. I think that was played fine. I do believe that any kind of overcards or something like that he would have donked on the flop, and I do think he would donk these hands on the flop. I'm just taking it down against, and sometimes he's gonna have like some kind of flush draw that beats me, and I will just push that off too. So it was kind of unlucky that he had something this time, but I do think the play was fine itself.